Aloha patrons. This is a Ableton tutorial for The Internet is Awesome, and it's going to be centered around controllerism and MIDI mapping. So let's get started. You can see this is my launch pad here, and I've got 8 clips wide, 8 clips long. That corresponds to the screen here. You can see 8 clips wide and 8 clips long. So when I press, if a button is lit here on the launch pad, like any of these, it means that there's a clip loaded in that slot. So when I hit the piano starts. Now it's quantized too, so it starts and stops on beat instead of exactly when I hit it. And that just means that even if I hit it like a little bit before, it'll launch on beat, so I never have to worry about hitting it at precisely the right time. Okay, so let's play a drum clip here. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. You can see this slider here. When I move it up, listen to what happens to the drums. So the drums are getting more intense, and the reason they're getting more intense is because the hi-hat, here I've loaded up my hi-hat here. You can see exactly what happens with the decay and the sustain when I turn up this slider here. You can see the sustain goes up and the decay goes up. Let's listen to that. Okay, so now if I map other things to this slider as well, you can see that I can start to change lots of sounds at once. So let's map some bass to that as well. So here's a bass clip. So what I'm mapping there is I'm mapping distortion. Let's open up the exact distortion. You can see when I up the slider here, massive. You can see macro number 2 here, which is controlling cutoff of filter frequency and resonance, is moving up. Okay, and then I'm also changing my compression here, although that seems to be off. Okay, cool. So that's bass. Now let's look at some guitar here. I'm gonna stop my bass. Let's cue up a guitar clip. Okay, great. So here's I have the slider now mapped to this knob. So watch what happens when I change this knob. Okay, so this knob is what's being controlled by this slider. And this knob is mapped to volume, sustain, volume, drive, and reverb. And then it's also getting mapped to a tool which changes it from wet to dry here. So I'm adding compression and then another amp here. So if I launch those 3 clips at once, guitar, bass, and drums, the hi-hat's going to open up. The guitar is going to get more distorted, and the bass filter is going to open up and get more distorted. Let's see what that sounds like. Okay, so you can start to see how powerful MIDI mapping is with just one slider. You can like make the entire band like start to get really powerful and intense and open up. So that's the basics of like what's going on in this session. I've mapped various sliders and various parameters here to like a whole bunch of different parameters inside the program. And what that allows me to do is control the entire band by just moving up one slider. Okay. Let's go to the piano solo moment here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this piano patch and aftertouch, which is awesome, and aftertouch is a thing that this keyboard has. So that's a keyboard sound. I'm going to open up that keyboard sound so you can see exactly what it is. It's massive, and then guitar rig with some compression and limiting. And I put all of this in an instrument rack so it's easily controllable. So what I want to talk about is aftertouch. So let's look at aftertouch here. You can see here's my aftertouch parameter. That means that this is different than going like this. You can see when I push harder, basically what it means is the keyboard has like another sensor. Once you press the button, it's unlike a real piano. Once you press the button, you can press harder and you can make that do whatever you want. In this case, I've dragged aftertouch onto an LFO. Yeah, here we go. Here's my aftertouch. It's on my LFO. And an LFO is a low frequency oscillator. It's basically creating like pitch bend. Whoa, 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 yeah. It's like a vibrato kind of thing. So I have my LFO on pitch here. And that means that I can make it really expressive. The harder I press, the more wobbly it gets. And that just makes it feel like it's responding to my emotions, you know? Right? So you get these very... my goal with building playable synths is to make the keyboard feel like it's responding to my emotion. So when I press harder and when I get more intense, the sound gets more intense. That's sort of a simplified way of saying it, but I want it to be responsive to like how I'm feeling in the moment. That's my goal of like of building a playable synthesizer. Right? You can like, it really starts to open up and get intense the more you hit it. Okay, so that's kind of the basic rundown of what's going on here. If you have questions, leave me questions. I'll be answering questions about controllerism and synths and MIDI mappings and all that kind of stuff. Feel free to shoot me a note and I will answer. Thank you, patrons. Arrivederci.